Let me ask you something. And I want you to actually pause for a moment and I want you to think about it. Now, if I asked you right now, who are you? Not what you do, not the roles that you play in everyone's life, and not the list of people that depend on you. I mean, just you. Who are you? Because something really interesting that I've noticed happens to a lot of women, as life kind of moves forward. You become very, very good at just knowing everyone else. You know what our kids like to eat. We know our partner's moods. We know what our coworkers are thinking even before they say it. We learn how to just anticipate everyone. But somewhere along the way, we stop being curious about ourselves. There was a moment in my life when I noticed something that was a little uncomfortable. I could tell you what everyone around me needed. I knew how to show up for people. I knew how to carry responsibility. I knew how to keep things moving. And then one day I just had to pause and ask myself, what do I actually want right now? And the answer, honestly, it wasn't really clear. And that's what surprised me because I realized I had spent years being attentive to everyone else and I hadn't been very curious about myself. And that realization, it stayed with me. And that's when this idea started to form for me. What would happen if I treated myself like someone I actually wanted to get to know? Almost the way you get curious about someone that you're dating. Think about that for a minute. When you're dating someone new, you don't rush to conclusions. You just sit back and you kind of notice things. You ask questions, right? You listen. And then you slowly learn who that person is because there's this curiosity there. There's patience there. And honestly, there's just a genuine interest in just getting to know them. Now imagine extending that same curiosity toward yourself. Imagine sitting across the table from yourself and you're actually getting interested in this woman that's sitting right there. Who is she now? What does she enjoy? What has she been carrying? And what does she need? That kind of curiosity, it changes relationships that you have with yourself. And when you go on a first date with someone, the conversation, it usually takes a shift and it's pretty simple. You ask things like, what do you like to do? What kind of music do you listen to? What do you enjoy doing on the weekend? All of those silly, simple questions. It's never anything too deep yet. You're just getting to know the person. And you want to know what's really surprising. At least to me, a lot of women haven't asked themselves those kind of questions in forever. And it's because life became about things being done, responsibilities, schedules, taking care of people, running from one obligation over to the next. And then that curiosity, it sort of disappears somewhere along the way. So if you were sitting across from yourself right now, here are a few simple questions that I think that would be a good place to start. What do I actually enjoy? What environments make me feel really good? Where do I feel the most like myself? And another really important one is what drains me? What situations leave me feeling tired or irritated? Those answers tell you a lot about someone. They tell you a lot about you. Now, after you've been dating someone for a little while, then that's when that conversation, it naturally shifts, right? And that's when you start to learn how they actually move through life, how they deal with stress, how they react when things don't go as planned. This is when you begin noticing patterns. And this is where things start getting interesting. So if you're dating yourself, you might start asking questions like, how do I handle pressure? What situations kind of bring out the best in me? What environments make me feel really small? Or what kind of people energize me? What kind of people leave me drained? And here's another good question worth paying attention to. What do I spend most of my time doing? Because the way you spend your time, it tells you the story of your life. It reveals those habits, those patterns, those priorities. Sometimes the picture that we have in our mind about who we are, it it doesn't really match how our days are actually unfolding. So dating yourself helps you notice that without, attacking yourself for it. You're just simply observing. You're learning. You're getting to know that woman that's sitting across the table from you. So here's some late night truth. Every once in a while, when you're dating someone, the conversation, it tends to get deeper, right? Maybe it's late in the evening. Maybe you've been talking longer than you've expected. Remember those nights? And then suddenly the conversation kind of moves to a more real talk. This is where the real understanding begins. If you're dating yourself, this is where you might start asking questions like, why do I want the things I want? Where did these expectations come from? Did I choose this path intentionally, or did I simply just keep moving in the direction that life kind of pushes me? Sometimes we start noticing that certain beliefs, they came from family, and then, some come from culture, some come from experiences that shape us years ago. And this part of the conversation isn't about blaming anything. It's about understanding the story. It's about understanding the story that you've been living, because when you understand your story, you gain the ability to decide what is going to come next. There is often a moment in this whole process where a woman realizes something. She realizes she has spent years showing up for everyone else, being dependable, being responsible, being supportive. And somewhere along the way, she just stopped checking in on herself. Yeah, it's that realization. And it can feel really surprising. It can feel sometimes emotional, sometimes a little uncomfortable, but it's also the beginning of something new and really meaningful, because reconnecting with yourself, it doesn't require tearing your entire life apart. I know it feels like it, but it requires you paying attention again. So here's something simple. I just want you to try it. Imagine sitting across the table from yourself, just the two of you. There's no distractions, and just ask her 3 questions. What in your life makes you feel alive right now? What feels really heavy right now? And what do you need more of? Now, I want you to just listen, okay? There's no judging. There's no correcting. We're just going to listen. Now, you might be surprised by what actually comes up, that actually comes up in your body. And, I know a lot of women talk about wanting to reinvent themselves. They want a new chapter. They want more alignment, more clarity, more freedom in their life. And those things can absolutely happen. But often it begins with something really simple: curiosity, paying attention again, building a relationship with the woman that you've become. Because when you understand yourself, your choices become clear. Your boundaries become so much stronger, and your direction becomes more intentional. And that's little by little. You begin to feel more at home in your own life. So I wanted to invite you here. If you're in a season where things feel like they're sort of shifting, where you're asking those deeper questions about who you are right now, you're not the only one walking through this process. This is a conversation that I have with women all of the time. And if you want to continue exploring this work with me, I've included a few things for you in the description. You can join the community or download the 7-day Revive guide. Both of those are designed to help you reconnect with yourself and kind of move forward with clarity. And before you go, I want you to tell me something in the comments. What is one thing about yourself you're curious about right now? Let's get the conversation started right there. So until next time.